Hello and welcome to JoyRide with your hosts, the Metaphysical Moms, Tiffany and Carrie. JoyRide takes you on a spin through all things spiritual and soulful, including holistic healing, energy work, and personal development. Now, here are your hosts, Tiffany and Carrie.
Hi guys, welcome to another spin on JoyRide. This is Tiffany and Carrie is tuning in via Skype. Say hi.
Hi everyone.
How are you today? Carrie is vacationing in New Braunfels with her family, and through the magic of technology, she could be here this morning, and we can see her. But y'all can hear her.
Yes, I'm here, and I'm so excited about today's show.
I know.
Only tried for months to have this on the show.
So this fella over here with a hella good hair is Mr. Mark Horn.
Hey.
And if you've been in Houston for any length of time, you have been one of the top hairstylists in Houston for years now.
Aww.
You have, but now you're dividing your time between New York and Puerto Rico and Houston. You're kind of a child of the universe right now.
I am. I'm starting to use the word vagabond.
Vagabond in a lovely way.
Yes, a dapper vagabond.
A dapper vagabond. That is Mark. So we wanted Mark on the show because he has such an interesting story, and he's such a beautiful soul and such a bright light, and I think we can all learn a lot from Mark and his lessons and his outlook on life. So we wanted him to come in as a metaphysical man.
Yep.
Spice up the place. And
Ooh, we need to get that one. We need to get that domain, the Metaphysical Man.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
always call ourselves the metaphysical mamas, but
I'm
we're
going to get
inclusive.
a big bling thing that says that.
Metaphysical man.
Yeah.
So Mark has always had great style and great energy, and it's hard not to just fall in love with this guy, right? You guys were in New York recently. You went to New York and said, you got to hook up with Mark, and y'all had a big time.
Yeah, we fell in love in a minute.
We did. You are my favorite person, and it is.
Wait.
We just don't get to see you enough. I mean, that's the only problem. And well, Tiffany, you are too.
I
We
know.
can have favorites from everywhere. But really, it is. I got to spend just as much time as I could with him. I was flying solo while husband worked, and so I got to pal around with you. And you are just, your story is phenomenal, and more than that, your soul. You just have the sweetest soul. So I can't wait to launch in and tell everybody all about you.
To dive right in. All right, so let's just chat. So if I can full disclosure, I met you through our good friend Jody.
Yes.
And it was at a time in your life where you were going through a lot of transition.
Yes.
And you came to me for tapping. And so I'm not a therapist, I'm not a coach, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a friend that will help walk through some of the yucky stuff that goes on in life, some of the difficult parts.
Yes.
And that's when I met you, and we just sat and talked for hours over all the different things you were going on. And so I was so honored, first of all, that you came and that we worked through that, and that now you're willing to share your story a little bit more.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was severely depressed, barely making it through any day. And Jody was in the salon one day, and I was living with blinders on. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just wanted to do the bare minimum of what I had to do. And I had a long-term relationship end abruptly, and which was kind of what started the depression. And about 4 months after that, Jody managed to get a couple of words out of me one day, and she had no idea what was going on. And she said, "Sweetie, is there something that I don't know about?" And
Yeah.
I told her, and she said, "Oh my God, I know exactly where you are right now." And she said, "There's one person that helped me more than anyone." And she gave me your name and your contact. I ran into one of the restrooms at the salon and called you and made an appointment for the next day. And that was 2.5 years ago. I think.
It's been a few years ago
Or maybe
now.
close to 3 years ago. So here we are.
Here we are. And
She did tell me, I want to say, she will take you to the depths of hell, but she will bring you back before you leave.
It hurts just like a Band-Aid. It hurts. You just gotta do it. But it does feel better after. And I'm just so proud of you, because we walked through a lot of stuff together, and you were not afraid to go there, and we just kept at it. And I can say that you seem brighter and lighter and just more at peace with, the changes that happen in world now, in your world.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I've learned that struggles are in our head a lot, and that energy. I'm working to let that energy just pass through me.
Yeah.
And realize that it's not real.
Yeah.
So
the show today, we want to talk about things like that, things like tapping, things like connecting with spirit. That was another big part of, I think, our healing journey together, is connecting. And you've always had a connection with spirit, as we all do. But I put Mark in touch with Georgia, who was a great medium friend of ours, and she was able to bring in some pretty important, powerful messages for you.
yeah, that was you know, there were 3 women that I say really helped me get through that, what I would say was a pretty dark time for me. You were one of them, and my another one was my mother, and another was my friend Sion.
Yeah.
And Sion was screaming for me while I was visiting Puerto Rico to read a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. And she said, read it while you're here, because I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, girl, I'm only here for a few days. But it was books like that I think led you and I to thinking it was time to introduce me to some other things.
So Many Lives, Many Masters. Carrie, have you read any of Brian Weiss's work?
It's on my bookshelf, so I flipped through it, but I love his work, and I know about him, but I don't know that I've read it in depth.
So, if you're interested at all in the spiritual path, your soul's evolution, that's a really great place to start. Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters, because he was a doctor, a psychologist in a very prominent university, and he had a client, Catherine, I think, that he was doing traditional therapy with for like over a year, and wasn't getting to the root of any of her issues. And sort of on a whim, he regressed her under hypnosis back to her childhood to see if there was something traumatic that was just so buried in her subconscious. And lo and behold, she starts backing up even further and started talking about a way that she died in France by being guillotined or something. And he was like, wait, what? That's not what I was expecting. But her phobia in this current life of being beheaded suddenly kind of disappeared. And he was able to regress her back through like 87 past lives. And all of the phobias that she was so struggling with in this life cleared up. And he kind of had to come out and say, all right, I know it sounds crazy to my fellow professional psychiatric brothers, but this is what's happening, and it's very therapeutic. So it's a great place to start to see how that soul went through all those different lives, learned all the different lessons, and it really does pop you up to that 30,000-foot view. So did you get the same reaction when you read it?
I did. When one is reading, because a lot of these books that are spiritual and talk about metaphysical and all of these issues, they quote one another a lot. So one book leads to another, which is what was happening with me.
Yeah.
I had really disconnected myself from God. I think I had started to believe that I was a tadpole. My father was a Baptist minister, so I grew up in a very religious family, but I didn't buy the brand, even as a child. And what I think I came to believe in my life was that if God was that, I didn't want any part of it. And so for years I was just kind of floating around, and it was this end of a relationship that sunk me into a kind of a dark spot that brought me here.
Yeah.
No.
What part of it was in the church? What was there a specific message you were hearing that you didn't jive with, or was there something what message was so?
I think the biggest one was fear God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if he loves you, why are you supposed to be afraid of him?
Yeah.
I never ever understood fear God.
Yeah. A vengeful God.
Yeah. And my dad was hellfire damnation. The Bible, throwing the Bible on the floor in the pulpit, and if the Bible said it, that's the way it was.
Right.
Now I can now look and say, okay, I agree with that, but the interpretation of what that says, which you led me to A Course in Miracles, which when I started studying and reading A Course in Miracles, I was like, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
And it really started making a lot of sense
Yeah.
of what the definition of what my traditional Baptist upbringing was versus what those passages in scriptures truly mean.
Yeah, so again, for those that are interested, A Course in Miracles is a book that is very near and dear to my heart, and it doesn't have to agree with everyone, but it's Carrie's laughing because we just had a conversation about this morning about A Course in Miracles, and it doesn't resonate with her as much, and that's totally fine. But
No, I do want to say right there, the idea that, and I think this is, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think the fundamental part of it is you see the world based on your lens and based on your experience, and that absolutely, and I think that everything outside reflects what's going on inside. So I couldn't agree more with that. So yes, I'm on board.
The big thing I think is ego, and I'm studying something else right now that is about getting rid of it. And I think that that's one of the big things about A Course in Miracles. And I think for someone that grew up in a conservative, traditional, religious upbringing that doesn't agree with it, A Course in Miracles can make sense of a lot of what that was. So if we just make it real simple and about dispelling maybe things that we were traditionally taught, and then realizing that our ego is ruling our lives, and we might want to learn how to change that. A Course in Miracles is, if it's nothing else, it's those two things.
absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And chime in.
Something right there. I know it's hard because the timing's off here. When you say ego, explain that to me, because there's so many different aspects, because we have sometimes I thought ego was bad, and then sometimes I realized that ego is just the personality here, that, that I'm, the skin suit that I'm in. How do you mean it when you say ego, Mark?
I think what I realize about ego is that it's a lot of, for me, that it's operating from a place of not being my true self.
Got it.
And it often resides in fear. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, often fear, anger. I believe there are two emotions, love and fear, and everything that's not love falls in the category of fear. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, you are one of the most authentic humans I've had the pleasure and honor to have been around. I mean, it is. So you're on such a beautiful path. It's hard though, huh? I mean, you're the.
I've been talking to a lot of people. You guys asked me if I had an agenda when this started, and I said no. And then I was like, yeah, I do have an agenda, a 12-step program for happiness. What I found is over the course of the last couple of years is how many people are confiding in me now and calling me now and talking to me about how they feel and why am I feeling this, and so much of it is I'm not happy. I don't feel happy.
Well, and as a hairstylist, you have someone sitting in front of your chair for hours at a time. I'm sure you are a therapist in many ways, because they confide, see you on a regular basis and confide, and you are a great teacher. So Mark had told me you were going to write a book, Preacher's Kid.
Yeah, My Life as a PK.
My Life as a PK, and I can't wait to read that book because he has some great stories.
It's going to be scandalous.
Ooh, I love it. You have to come back on the show for that.
And it's all true. It's what you lived, and you had to come out to your family.
Right.
Can we go there?
Yeah, you mean...
Back when you were a teenager, right? You had to come out to this very... like you said, scripture-based, fundamental Christian family.
Yeah, that was, we're talking sexuality here, correct? Yeah. I think.
Well, do you have something else to come out about?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I believe now that parents kind of know that thing about their children. There's some people say I don't agree, but my parents. Yes, I think I was about 15 years old, and someone outed me to my parents. So I came home, curfew, 11 o'clock, whatever it was, and the kitchen light was on. And I was like, oh, no.
What happened?
What did I do? And I sat in the car for a few minutes trying to realize it. And when I came in was when they confronted me about it. And it took a long time to heal from that. You know, I mean, you're talking a man of a Baptist minister and his wife who believe it's wrong. And it took a long time. But fortunately, I got some great years with my father that were filled with love before he died.
Yeah.
And, you know, what mother wouldn't want a gay hairdresser, decorator, stylist for a son?
And you guys are still so close. I know your dad's passed on, but you're close with your dad now in spirit. And
I am very close with my dad now. He's around
all the
a lot,
time. Yeah.
all the time, a lot. And I just actually shared with a friend last night who said his father, for the first time in his life, said, "I've always loved you." And I said, that is amazing that you got to hear that while you were both on this physical planet.
Did you never hear that?
My love for my dad was, "We love you."
Okay.
And I would say to him, "I know my mom does. What about you?" He could never go there.
No.
And my first visit, connection through medium with my dad after he left this physical life, one of the things he said to me was he was worried about me at the moment because I was very depressed. And he said, "I've actually always been worried about you." And, you know, you said that you wanted me to experience that that metaphysical, that connecting with life beyond death. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, life beyond the physical death.
Yes.
Yeah.
To realize I was loved.
Yeah.
And that was one of the gifts, you know, to realize that I was loved. And I know that comment coming from my dad was a way of saying,
I've always loved you.
I've always loved you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It really is.
It makes me cry. It is. I think that is such being a mother of 3 boys and having, sorry boys, but having my children at different times say, you know, Mom, I'm not sure about this. I just can't imagine. My one son, very pointedly, Mark, I think I've told you this, very pointedly when he was 7, said, "Mom, I think I might be gay." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And I said, "I don't know. I mean, it's up to you who you love." And he came back and he said, "That was a great response, Mom." No. Then he said something about, "Would you love me?" And I said, "Honey, I couldn't love you more. I couldn't love you less. You know, my love is not based on what you do. If you were president or CEO of a major company, I couldn't love you more." And he's like, "Oh, that was a great response, Mom."
Good answer, Mom.
I think I passed it. Good answer, Mom. But I just say that brings tears to my eyes. But just for your father to step up like that, because I know that especially in that time frame, especially in the South, all these big pieces to this. I mean, that's beautiful for both of you. But at the same time, it's sad that that's even in question.
Right.
So,
But it's changing now, right?
It is changing. I believe it. I mean, I've heard so many things over the years just from friends that are school teachers and how, you know, kids are reacting to their gay fellow students and how parents are responding. And I hear it from my clients who, you know, have been less and less concerned about that sort of thing. So I read or listened once, and I will hang on to this forever because I think it's true for both sides, that homosexuality is a lesson in love.
Yeah.
I love that. It is a lesson
It's
in love, because you have, but to be able to love who you love, I think that takes a lot of guts too, especially, and you know, we are in the South, and I think that takes courage. But then I also look at this and I think how fortunate on one hand, I'm not sure, but it seems that walking into that with your mom and your dad at 16, I have someone that I'm very close to that didn't tell his parents till he was in his late 20s. So he had to hide, and denied himself that love for 30 years. And so I think on one hand, that's a blessing that you were able, because you had that time after to really sort of work with your parents with that. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel lucky that it happened early. I say that I came out of the womb with a dress on. I say that jokingly, but
we bought some nice dresses.
We did, and I think what I mean by that is it was never ever in my life a question.
For you.
Ever. I was never afraid of it. I was never afraid to be who I was. I was never afraid to wear what I wanted to wear. So it was just never. And I've never. I used to say when I was probably even a teenager, maybe in my 20s, that I didn't understand why gay had to be defined as sex, because I think that that's what so many people thought about it, is they thought about the sexuality part of it. So even as a really young person, I thought, I'm not any different than anybody else. Why does this have to be about what we do in our private life? Because as a human being, we're all the same.
Absolutely.
So
well
that was apparent to me quite young, about just being the same. Why does it have to be about sex?
And you've lived your whole life like that. I feel like you've been very authentic with that your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've never had to hide it, but you probably had a lot of judgment from the community, from your family, about what that meant, or confused about what that meant. So I'm glad you've stood your ground and been a bright light, and now it's not as big of an issue.
No.
It's not an issue at all in my mind, but in our culture in general, I think it's just becoming way more accepted. All of the transgender, lesbian, gay, whatever. It's part of life. It's a fact now.
Yes.
So I love that.
I'm in this small town, and it's a beautiful small town, and I've just met some of the most incredible people. But I know that it is a very kind of closed to some ideas, and that always, we live in an area in Houston that's very cosmopolitan. It's just not a big deal. I mean, it's really kind of not a big deal at all. And so coming here and sort of going, and seeing that to some people it still very much scares them. That's eye-opening. I found myself talking to a friend of ours and saying, why does someone care? I mean, I can't even go there. I mean, I can't even imagine why people care. So I think we're moving very quickly there. It's just really no big deal. And I think it starts in the big cities and then it kind of filters out, but it just, I don't know. Anyway, Terry, hopping in from the little square box.
That's it. I hope our globe becomes this way, and I hope all the boundaries start erasing and all different kinds of separation and typifying. I just hope it all starts to blend together, because we are all one. We all love who you love.
Yes. One of the things I remember that you said to me repeatedly when I was going through some difficult stuff was, don't leave. You can't leave. You can't leave this planet, because we're all in this together and we all need each other.
Yeah. Yes, I'm glad.
Let's
take that off the table. Just take that off the table. Just we're going to be here together. And look where you are now. Maybe you can speak to the difference of, because so many people are in a difficult place and it feels like it will never end, and how will I survive this, and this, I've lost this, or this has changed so drastically, who am I now? And you've stuck the course. Where are you now? How do you feel? And I'm not saying this is the end of the journey and you've got it all figured out, but you've come through that now, and maybe you've got a different relationship with that place now.
Yeah. Continuing to learn that acceptance and of where I am, that I'm okay.
Yeah.
That was a big one that you said to me over and over. You're okay. You're going to be okay. You're okay. Are you okay right now? The answer usually is, yeah, I'm okay. But I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, I was just talking about people who are stuck in that dark place, and just knowing that there are tools, outlooks, friends, support to help you just stay the course and get through that, and get through those dark times. And reflecting back on that now, do you see how you've moved through it.
I do see how I've moved through it. I read something. There was a football player that smacked his wife in an elevator.
Right.
I don't remember his name or too much about what happened afterwards, but there was a story about him sometime after it, and I only read the headline or like the first sentence, and he said, "I see now from what I've been through how people could commit suicide." Obviously, that was a very dark time in his life, and for me, it was, I wanted so badly to feel better that I was willing to do anything, read any book, pay no matter. I spent so much money on therapy before I met you, but I wanted to feel better. And I think what I understood when he said that, or when I read that it wasn't that I really wanted to kill myself. It was that I just didn't want to be in my head anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
I had never been through a depression like that.
And it feels so real. It feels so all-encompassing.
Yes.
And that there are no options.
Yes. You said something about identifying. I mean, I was so identified with Mark Horn, the hairstylist that everybody knew, had this big fancy place, that had a partner, that had what I felt and thought was a perfect life.
Yeah.
I had a home in another country. I had this, I had that. And I was so identified with it. I remember you and I discussed it one day, and I was telling you that I was so identified with the business that I had built and the life that I had built, that who was I? I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't know who to identify as. And you said, and I said it when people ask me if what I do for a living, I couldn't just say I'm a hairstylist. I had to tack on the story because that made me important. And in your office one day, you said, "Okay, we're going to do a little thing here," and you said, "We just met at a party, and I'm going to ask you, hi, and what do you do for a living?" And I couldn't even spit out that I'm a hairstylist. I started crying because I was so identified with it. And today, I can tell people I'm a hairstylist. That's what I do for a living.
I'm just reading the comments here. What a beautiful soul he is. This is someone who's just met you for 15 minutes. Thank you, Shelley. What a beautiful thing to say.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thing to say. I feel it.
And so we ended up saying that this whole transition for you has been a gift, because I hope it's helped you identify with who you truly are and not the ego. The 3D world is great and we can enjoy it, but that's, if we plug into that for the identifying fulfillment, it will change. It always changes. That's what it's based on. So.
It does. And, going back to the ego, I often wonder, I do like to consider myself a little dapper and kind of stylish. And
you ooze it. You cannot not be.
I was going to say, you embody it.
People will just walk up to him and it's like, whatever that is, it's fabulous.
You know what? That makes me think about the lady I had one time in the airport. I was crying. I was standing in the corner and I called you and you said, go somewhere where you can kind of hide a little bit. And I was in tears. And I think I had this jacket on, as a matter of fact, and you got me through it. I went through security. I went to the coffee shop and I got a coffee, and this woman walked up to me, and she was, I'm not tall. I'm 5'8", and she was probably 5'3" or 4, and she got in my personal space, like super close to me. My eyes were probably bloodshot from crying, and I think it was only the softness of her voice that made me not ask her to step away from me, because she was very, very close. And she said, some people in this world, they just have it. And she took and pointed her finger at me and she ran it down the front of my body and she said, you have it.
That was a little angel.
And she was an angel. That was an angel. But what I was going with was the ego thing of feeling like I needed to always present myself a certain way. And one thing I've realized now is, if I get on the subway in New York and I look down at my white jeans and there's a big old coffee stain, I'm just like, oh, well, I got a coffee stain today.
Yep.
Who hasn't gotten up and sat in something and had a big stain on their butt, and you're walking around town and it's just okay. I got a coffee stain today.
I love it. You were going to say something.
But I there are folks that I know that sometimes people get trapped in the worlds that they create. I think that happens all the time. And I think that it is, if I break up with this person, if I divorce this person, if I go back to nothing. I mean, I can count on both of my hands how many people I know that that's their story, and they stay trapped in that, because I think the bottom line fear is, who am I? I'm nobody. And I think so much of that, so much of walking through being in that dark place is trying to find your passion. Tiffany and I were talking about that. It's that spark, that reason to wake up, that's something to look forward to. And I think we get so stuck in that, I have nothing. I have nothing. I have zero passion. I haven't felt joy. And I think, how long do you think it took you from, oh my goodness, my world is falling apart, to today is going to be a good day. Today I look forward to X, Y, or Z. How long, and I know it's different for everyone, but how long did that process take for you?
2 years.
Yeah.
I felt
Your dark night.
I felt like bad for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there were bright moments within that 2 years, but I didn't know how to be happy. And that's why I say, I jokingly a moment ago about the 12-step program for happiness. I don't think people know how to be happy, and I think as humans we can struggle to go in and out of it, because of this image that we have in our head, or that we're taught that our life is supposed to be. We're supposed to be married, we're supposed to have children, or we're supposed to have a partner and some dogs and a house in Italy, and all of these things. And then when we don't have them,
we're not happy.
We're not happy.
Or even people that have them are not happy.
Well, that's a true story.
Well, you think, and then, I mean, I know that at one point, I was probably 42. I'm 46 now. I just remember sitting back, and this is, and I know I've said this before, and this is not a slam against any of this, but I remember thinking, oh my gosh, one day I was going to get married. One day I was going to have a house. One day I was going to have kids. And I've checked all of those. One day I was going to have a business. I've checked them all off my list. Now what? And I really, it kicked me in the head, because I thought, now I just wait for grandkids in an RV. And there's nothing against any of that. But I thought, I haven't lived yet. This isn't, and I'm almost halfway through. And oh my God, now what? And that really was the beginning of my journey of, what do we do? What do I do? And I'm not happy just hanging out at the club and doing these things. And here we are a couple of years after that, and we're doing some really fun, weird things. And so I think that you need to write that 12 steps.
12 steps for happiness.
You need to fill that out.
I'm feeling it. It is just a constant struggle for people. One of my dearest clients and friends called me. I texted her the other day just to check in. She'd had some medical things, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. And she immediately called me, and she said, I am so grateful for what I have in my life. I have so much more than so many people have. She said, but I'm struggling to be happy right now. And I was on Fifth Avenue, and we were talking about happiness, and me trying to share some things about my life that could maybe find her in a little bit of a better place at that moment. But I think for even the happiest of people, even people that do know gratitude and they do know that they're okay, sometimes that little unhappiness thing creeps in. So
what did you tell her? What were your steps?
12-step program.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to send you an email, 12 steps.
Well, and
through them.
You've been through the 12 steps, because you have not had alcohol for decades now. I know you've been clean. So that was, thank goodness, that was never an option through your depression. You were so strong to not go back to numbing it with medication or alcohol or drugs.
Yeah. I remember you telling me numerous times that you were proud that I didn't have to do that.
That is huge, because I think that it's such an easy, it's so within our reach. It's acceptable in society to just, knock them back. But it does mess with the brain chemistry, and I don't think it helps you get clear. It numbs it momentarily, and you might feel better momentarily. But for many people, I think it's a very slippery slope.
Yes. Carrie said something a moment ago about who am I, and people trying to figure that out. I don't know today how to figure out who am I, but I love that you said that, and it reminded me in my meditations at this point to quiet my mind. My inquiry is simply, who am I? And I believe that inquiry will take us to a more quiet mind to discover the true self.
Absolutely. I'm going to read a few Facebook comments here. Thank you guys for tuning in to Facebook Live with us, because we've had a lot of people tuning in to say hi. Lori and Daryl. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Jody. Oh, Jody's here. We love you. Hi, Emma from Belgium. And
Hi, Emma.
Lori, I probably already said Lori. Bobby's here. Thanks, Bobby. Karina, Jason, Shelley, thank you for saying what a beautiful soul. Patricia, what a beautiful person. Michael Kerr, we just had him on last week. And Emma says, unhappiness teaches us and shows us what we don't want, so we can start shifting and aligning with the vibrations of things, of what we do want. Unhappiness brings clarity to what is really important. So very well said.
I like that. I want you asked what I said to my client, and I remember just now when they said something about unhappiness here, that I told her, you realize that that's where you're sitting and let the energy pass through you. And one of my choice today is to realize that in everything I feel, I have the choice.
Yeah.
I can choose the road of unhappiness, or I can choose the road of happiness. So if I start to feel, oh, I'm unhappy, I don't have what I want, I'm broke, I'm whatever, choose different.
Choose a different thought. And that's where no, go ahead.
I know.
I know, she's like, wait, I want to talk. Raise your hand.
And I don't want to cut anybody off, but it is, I think by being unhappy, it's exactly what Emma said. It is two things I'd like to say. Is that it so helps you. It's the fertilizer that makes the good stuff grow. When you walk through it and you get to the other side, you know what that looks like, and you know what perfect looks like, quote, air quotes. And so I think that all of that leads you to who you really are, and then it's just incredible richness. And that's what I feel from you. And the other part of that is we don't have to figure out who we are, because I think it shifts in every moment, not in a I don't have a sense of self way, but in a right now I get to be mysterious. Right now I'm feeling love, I'm feeling joy, I'm feeling sexy, I'm feeling, I'm with Tiffany, and I'm just in love with our friendship, and I'm with you, and I'm in love. I think that when we quit trying to define, we get to be endless, boundless anything, I mean, you're an incredible stylist, but then you're also an author, and you're also an architect, and you're also a designer. I mean, Mark, you're all of it. You're like the bomb diggity. You are all of it. And so I think defining yourself would really kind of put the training wheels back on your bike. And we just need to put a jetpack on the back, which is already there, and you've lit, pew, off you go. Okay, so that's it. I'm done.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
Wow.
Listen, you said something to me, Tiffany, a moment ago about look how these things are lining up in your life. And awareness is one thing I ask for and say thank you for having me be aware today, so that I can notice when the things show up. Carrie, I think you, and I don't remember the story exactly, but you shared something with me about when you were asking for something to come to you or to be shown to you, and I think it was a light in the kitchen cabinet or a reflection or something happened to you. And I don't remember the story, and you're going to have to sit down with me and tell me the story again so I can tell it right.
Happily.
But I share it with people. I'm like, one of my friends told me she opened the cabinet and there was whatever it was. And it was just my telling the story even badly is just about let's be aware. If we're going to ask the universe to show us where to go, you better wake up.
And watch for the signs.
Yeah. You got to look for the signs.
You better wake up.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You're exactly. And I have to stop right here. I have to stop the show. Tiffany, I have worked with you. I mean, when we first met, you did some work with me, and I just thought it was incredible. But to hear Mark refer to all of the incredible things that you've done, I'm just in awe. I'm in awe.
No.
It's incredible. I mean, just to help people walk through this. But Mark, she kind of fell in love with you, so you're ours.
I know.
You're our baby.
That's awesome. Those thoughts led me to think about studying right now, and what we're talking about the shirt, the arm, the fingernails, the hair, the makeup, the house, the everything that it's all none of it's really real, and I'm sort of going into a new place right now of studying some things that I'm struggling with because
it's so opposite of what our brain wants to think.
It's so opposite. So we have to change the way we think about it, that nothing's really real. We've made it all up.
We've made it. Well, that's the first lesson in the Course of Miracles.
Yes.
Is you have to sit there, the first couple of lessons, and be like, I have given all the meaning in my life I have assigned to this stuff. Like, this must be my most favorite pen, and I love it, and you look at it, and you think that's a cheap, I would never. We assign the value to everything in this life.
Yes.
We get to choose what it is.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
I digress, but it's...
And trusting, when I went through the loss of a relationship, it made me realize how unhappy I was with everything in my life. So what came after that was closing a 20-year business.
There was a lot going on.
There was a lot, and it was spending the weekend with my mother and my 90-year-old aunt. That was one of the greatest weekends of my life. And I woke up on the day I was to return to Houston, and the first thing that came into my mind when my eyes opened was, I'm done. And I called my manager the next day, had a meeting with my staff, and said, you have 2 weeks. And
closing the business.
We're closing. What came after that was I pretty much lost everything that seemed like it meant something to me. I lost income. I lost. I say I lost everything. So now, trying to think of what's next and what am I going to do next has been a challenge to just trust that what I've asked for will come, and I've every day remind myself to remember to just enjoy this moment, and don't worry about the next one, and just enjoy this moment.
But things always seem to line up for you. You have an idea to create a hotel or a shop in Puerto Rico, and a client, her husband, I don't remember the exact story, but the investors might show up. I mean, it's just amazing how things line up for you, and you get to explore all these, and trusting, like you said, that the next thing will unfold as it's supposed to, but you're also not plugging into the next thing to give you the happiness.
Right.
Like you said, I'm okay where I am. I'm
okay
content.
where I am. You were the one that told me, because money was a big issue for me, as I know it is for so many people. And I just kept saying, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do anything? I don't have any money. I can't do that. I can't even open another hair salon. I can't even, no money, no money, no money. And you said to me one day, there's enough money in the world for everybody.
Yeah.
And it took a few times hearing that for me to find, and now I say it to other people who say, I don't have any money. I'm like, there's enough money. I'm like, $1 million is nothing. There's a lot of money out there.
And we turned you on, Abraham Hicks, and
yes.
just what you think about, what you focus on, and the beliefs that you have become true for you.
Right.
So have you been practicing that?
I do daily.
Yeah.
Daily. Feel good. I just actually posted on Instagram this morning, feel good and the rest will follow.
Ta-da! Drop the mic.
Oh, man. Mic drop. Okay, so if I may, I think what I see is then at some point you're going to look back and say, okay, this was the first half, and this is the second half, the before and the after. And you'll see the incredible role this transition played. And I think on a higher plane, this was all designed. I think you designed it this way.
Yeah.
And you'll know the whys and the hows, but I think that'll be definitely obvious.
I had a spiritual guide come to my apartment one day, and I was, going through challenging times. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had failed at everything. I had failed at my relationship. I wasn't good enough. I had failed. I couldn't keep my business open. That was a failure. And and I was saying this to this woman, and she said, "Honey, it hardly seems like having a business open for 20 years is a failure."
Right.
And she said to me that day, and it clicked immediately. She said, "Look at all the lives you've touched. Look at all the lives you've changed."
And we've had some you've let me, we've had some medium readings, and you've let me witness them. And I know your friends in spirit have said, you make people feel like art. You make them feel beautiful. They have your full attention, and you have no idea of the good that you're doing with the talents that you have and how far that reaches.
Yeah, that makes me think about the gifts that we all have to be connected to spirit and to share that with the world. And
you've dismissed it like, I'm tired, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, you have no idea what you're doing when you do what you do.
He just did it. You said that, and he said, yes, but look at everybody else.
One of my friends in New York says, "I don't know what kind of magic you got going on in you, but people are looking." We walked into a restaurant one evening, and this happens to me. It happens to me everywhere I think I go. And we walked in, and I greeted the woman that was seating people, and she lit up like quickly, and she said, "I don't know what you got going on here, but I love it. I'm giving you the best table in the restaurant." And I was like, "Okay, I'll take it."
You got to bottle that.
So have you been? I think we'd actually talked about this. Don't people walk up and want to know who you are? Like who you are?
Like you should be famous. Are you famous?
Like I should know. Like are you famous? Are you a famous?
Oftentimes, my friends I think often recognize that more than I do. That what I've learned about that is sometimes maybe it is that somebody thinks you look like I look like someone, or that any of us look like someone else. But I think what I've learned to believe, it's just the energy that we carry.
It's just the way you carry yourself.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first time I met you, you walked into the hotel, and we were staying in Midtown, and it was packed. And I saw you right off the bat, and you walked in. You're wearing all black, and it's raining and windy outside and cold. He walked in and with this big scarf, and God, you just look like $1 million. You're right. People do turn to see who just walked in. I mean, because
But it's interesting that you've always looked like $1 million. You'll come in, I feel terrible. It's like, well, you look like $1 million. So okay, let's do it. Let's match the inside to the outside, because
that's the movie star in me.
It is the movie star.
Are you writing? Because I know you've been writing. Are you writing?
Where's the block? Where's the block?
Tap on that.
I need to tap on that.
Your story. I'm glad we're out here doing this today, because your story needs to be told.
It's in me, and I have a friend. In my self-discovery of what is Mark going to do next? What's the next thing in my life? I have a lot of knowledge about the beauty industry and how to run a hair salon and how to run a business. I paid a lot of money to have coaches and consultants, and I felt like there's a statistic in the beauty industry that 85% of hair salons are losing money, and there's only 5% that are profiting. 15% are breaking even, and that's just a lot of people that are struggling. 85%, if you think about that. And I thought, how could I help? Not so sure that this is what I want to do, but one of my friends, where I'm going with this is one of my friends in New York I said, well, maybe I could be a consultant. And he said, would you rather consult a handful of people or write a book and help millions of people? Mm-hmm. And he said, we've been walking down 14th Street for an hour now, and I've been asking you questions about your industry, and you have written the book.
Yeah, you've just rattled them off.
In the last hour, you have written the book, and you've told me everything. So I have people that keep pushing. This writing thing keeps popping up in my life over and over and over. So I don't know what's going to slow me down and make me stop and start writing. I'm a storyteller, so I think what I have concluded there is that I need to audio this to be written, because more than being a person that could sit down with a pen and a paper, I'm a storyteller.
An orator. Drink or order. Yeah, that's a good point.
That word sounds close to hoarder. Orator.
Or it's that Texas twang, you're an orator. But it is, I think that it is, to even do it that way would be phenomenal, because there are folks that are incredible speakers. I'm the opposite. I write more than I speak. And you just showed an entirely different way to write a book. You can tap on that, Tiffany. Tap on
I know.
You can speak it. And yes, I have known, one of my friend Sion that I referred to earlier, 2 years ago when all of this came up in life for me, a few years ago, she said then, I think you should drop your life, come to Puerto Rico, heal, and write your book. And looking back on it, I don't regret that I didn't do it, but there were great words. Mm-hmm. There was great wisdom in those words, to just go away and heal.
And look at all these beautiful people that love you. No matter if you have a salon or a bank account with tons of, no, it's irrelevant. There are so many people who love you and say, come be with me, be with me.
Yeah.
We just love you.
Yeah, I think I like that you said that. And if we're talking about people that are feeling in a dark place, learning that we're loved no matter what.
Learning to love yourself.
And learning to love ourselves is important. I said to one of my friends about being alone recently, and he said, I want you to know that I love you, and my love and I am always with you.
That's beautiful.
So in those dark places, I think it's important to realize and to hang on to the fact that we're not alone. And that
you can be alone if you tried. You have a spirit team around you. You have your family, your guides. Yeah. You couldn't be alone if you tried.
Yes. I know I argued that point with you a lot, because I'm like, well, you have your husband and your kids to go home to, and you're not alone. And so it's that physicality that we connect. Mm-hmm. We've I don't know, how did we learn this? That if we're physically by ourselves, we're alone. Mm-hmm. And that if we have to be with somebody, and that's probably a whole nother 2 or 3 shows about people just grasping to be with somebody because they don't want to be alone.
I think the universe gave you this opportunity to be alone for you to find your own peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I believe that the universe is still holding that at bay for me.
Come on, Mark.
You got more to learn, Mark.
You got more to learn. Okay, but I do want to go ahead.
How much time do we have?
7 minutes.
About 5 minutes.
7, yeah.
No, go.
I loved all the readings that you did, where you got so much insight from your friends, your family, your guides that would come in and just be like, all right, Mark, what's it going to be? Is it going to be New York? It's going to be Puerto Rico. What's your decision? What do you want to be? How do you feel getting that insight, those questions? And they never gave you the answer. They would just ask you lots of questions, or don't forget this, or, have you thought of it this way? How did that feel, connecting and knowing that it was kind of indisputable the way they would come through?
Oh, my gosh. That was a huge turning point in my belief in spirit. Huge turning point. The only, I was guided to reach out to clients for some money for a project, which didn't work out. Not real sure what the guidance was about. I think it was a lesson probably in the fact that just because I'm telling you no doesn't mean I love you.
Right.
It just means, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But learning love from other people, and the fact that people that we've lost that aren't here anymore want to help us, that we have to ask them, is a great reminder when we're talking about dealing with spirit. Because I tell people all the time, there's a lot of help out there for us, but we have to remember to ask.
Yeah. Your dad and your brother?
Yeah. Who I'm asking stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
Help.
Well, and you said you're hearing them. You hear them now
Yes.
that you know that connection's there.
You do?
Yeah. My dad and my brother Paul I'm hearing them constantly. My brother shared with me that he wanted to talk to me in my dreams. And Carrie, you and I talked about that when I was in New York. And I still don't know that I've heard anything, but I'm still working on that.
So how do you hear your father?
He talks to me.
I mean, do you hear him as a voice?
I see him, and he talks to me. Yes.
I didn't know this, Mark. Is this new?
No, it's
recent?
not. You know, when I first started, a friend of mine said, I think you should meditate with high frequency music. And this was like 3 years ago when all of this change happened in my life. And I would lay on the floor and put this high frequency, loud, crazy music in my ears. And my dad and my brother were floating above me one of the very first times that happened. Now, there wasn't a lot going on at that moment other than we love you. And I wasn't even sure what was going on. So that was the first time this happened. And then it just started evolving. And then as my dad came in, when I visited with a medium privately, the first person that came in, she said, I have a male figure coming in. And then she said, I'm seeing them in the position of father. And then she said, yes, it's your father. And for the whole 30 minutes, it was just me and my dad. And it was really, really then that I knew that he was there. He was there to help me. He was there to comfort me, and for us to talk about the lives that we had together on this physical earth. So it was in that session when it was only my second session with the medium, so it was still all very new to me, that she said, he's asking about his cat. And she said, and it's not an animal. And you can hear me on the recording. I completely fell apart. I think I even fell off the sofa that day. And my mother's name is Catherine, and my dad called her Cat. And you can hear me say on the recording, that's my mother. He's asking about my mother.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful. When you have your own...
Was this Georgia?
Yeah, this was Georgia. She's not doing readings anymore, but there are many credible
incredible
mediums out there. The channelingericmediums.com. It's Eric with a K. There's a lot of great mediums on there who you can connect with if this is resonating with you, because then you know your relationship with them continues and you can let go of the grief. I mean, we'll always miss them physically, but letting go of the grief and the void and the things that were left unsaid, or you can continue the relationship and they're there to continue to help you. No. I mean, it's still your life and you make your choices, but you can still, you know, like you would call your dad and say, hey, what do you think of this? You can still get their input, and now they have a much higher view of everything. They can, at least in my experience, because I've spoken to my parents now for years through mediums, and they've really helped guide me and calm me, comfort me, reassure me on so many difficult things. So I love having that and as a tool through this life,
we are now walking. My grandmother is going to pass soon, and we know this. We all know this. And my dad shared with me that my dad is not. Forgive me. I hope he's not hearing this, but he is not of this mind at all. I mean, I called him once with all this. I mean, just proof with his father, and he can go there. And so he was telling me a couple of nights ago he had a dream. He's like, "You're into this shit. What do you think this means?" He said he had a dream that his father was there saying, "I'm here to take Mama home."
Yeah.
And I said that he's here to take her home. I said, "Dad, you had a visitation."
And I know you're going to go visit her now. Hey, I hate to cut you off, but we have to say goodbye.
Yes, no. I could talk for hours. I want to
Let's just start, Mark. Thank you for sharing your journey,
yes,
and we will keep in touch with you. Thank you, everybody on Facebook Live, for tuning in and saying hi. Thank you, Lori, for your sweet comments.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Love you all.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful